My name is Casey Nash, and I am the Chief of Staff of Intel's Data Center and AI Global Sales Organization. And I am super excited to have two incredible women with me today from Intel, Sandra Rivera and Rose Schooler, to talk about the importance of growing diversity in STEM, especially with women. So as technology continues to grow with every aspect of our lives, demand for these folks in science and engineering and technology will continue to grow. It's true for traditional organizations like Intel, but it's also true for public and private sectors across the globe. The scope of our opportunity is immense. And today we're going to talk about how do we encourage more women and young girls to pursue tech roles and how these women see these things changing within Intel and across the industry. So Sandra and Rose both hold senior leadership positions at Intel, share similar education backgrounds and personal backgrounds. They're going to share with us today their perspectives on the need to invest in diversity in technology across the board. Let's get started. So my first question to you ladies, tell us a little bit about your role at Intel, how you got there, and one fun fact about yourself. Sandra, let's start with you.
My name is Sandra Rivera, and I lead the data center organization for Intel. And this is the group that is responsible for the Xeon CPU platform, which powers most of the world's high-performance computing data centers and solutions. I'm also responsible for the AI strategy and convening a set of products and an overall software stack and approach to address what is a very pervasive and growing workload in data centers and infrastructure all over the globe. I've been at Intel 21 years now. I came in as a result of an acquisition when Intel was investing in communications and networking technologies, which is most of my background. I spent a lot of that time actually working with Rose, building and growing the networking business for Intel. And then I made an interesting career pivot a couple of years ago when I was asked by our previous CEO to partner with him to lead the culture transformation of Intel as part of the business transformation. And I was the chief people officer for Intel for 2 years prior to taking on this role just a few months ago. And a fun fact about me, something that maybe most people wouldn't know, is that we are raising llamas on our property here in the East Bay of California. So not probably a typical hobby, but one that we share with our kids and my husband. So,
thank you. That's amazing. Rose, how about you?
I love your llama fun facts. I'm sorry. I'm Rose Schooler. I've been at Intel 32 years. And I lead the data center and AI global sales organization. A summary statement would be, I'm Sandra's salesperson. And my responsibility is to create the pipeline and deliver the revenue for the organization on a quarterly and annual basis and maintain our very, very critical customer relationships, work with them on our technology journey and transforming industries like the data center, the future of the data center, and AI. Like I said, I've been at Intel 32 years. I like to say that I use a baseball terminology. I've hit the cycle. I started in the fab. I did engineering outside the fab. I then went into the business unit, into marketing. And then as Sandra noted, we built the networking business together for the company. Did a little bit in IoT, probably 4 years in driving our IoT strategy and then sales. And then I made a pretty big pivot when I went to sales. I had been a lifer in the business unit. So I've been about 5 years in sales and marketing, both on the IoT and on the data center side. Fun fact about me, I have a French bulldog named Gus. He is probably one of the most vocal French bulldogs you've ever met. And he tends to make appearances on video shoots and CEO meetings. So if you hear snoring or barking or someone sounding like they're howling very loud like a velociraptor, it would be my dog who's laying right at my feet as I talk to you all right now.
That's great. Speaking of diversity, right? We have a little Gus on the phone today. All right, Sandra, I'm going to start with you. My first question is, why is diversity such an important topic in technology?
Well, diversity is an important topic in all industries. And maybe I'll just start with the technology industry, really not being so much an industry in and of itself, but technology being pervasive in every industry across the globe, whether that's in manufacturing, retail, agriculture, healthcare, financial sector. So technology really is the root of innovation that is happening across the globe in every single sector. And arriving at solutions that are really anchored in technology innovation requires a diverse set of perspectives, experiences, points of view, opinions, areas of expertise. And the way that we arrive at the most innovative solutions is by harnessing and leveraging all of that wonderful diversity of thought. So for us in the technology industry specifically, we know that innovation is the lifeblood of our solutions and of the value proposition that we create with our customers. And having more diversity of thought, experience, expertise, points of view leads us to better solutions and better business results for our customers. And it's been a challenge for us to have sufficient diversity in the pool of employees, workforce that we have. And that's true, again, either in the tech industry or outside of the tech industry. So for a long time, we've known that having all of that richness of a broad set of perspectives does lead to more innovation and better results. But for a long time, we know that we don't have sufficient diversity in the workforce, and that's a problem. It's a multifaceted problem that starts, from early days of education, which I think we'll get into in some of the discussion. But more diverse perspectives leads to more innovative solutions, drives better business outcomes, and that's true in the tech industry, but also for every industry.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So Rose, on top of that, how do we attract more women into this industry?
It's actually a topic. I was an active member of the NCWIT, National Center for Women in Technology, for quite a few years. And on that board, we discuss when to engage. And one of the things that, I think was a pretty pervasive thought is we've got to engage young girls early and often. I think if we all think back in our experiences, when we were children, we weren't necessarily handed computers, at least in Sandra and I's day, right? And I think, there's stereotypes that need to be broken. There's stigmas that need to be broken, but we need to engage young girls and start to share the power of technology and the power of innovation in all of their areas of interest. Right? It's not just the opportunity to sit down at a computer by yourself and code. Absolutely. That's one of the directions that you can go in. But technology is really infiltrating every industry on the planet, from fashion to sports to consumer products. It's really, really pervasive. And I think it's incumbent in all of us to introduce those opportunities to blend their passions with STEM opportunities when they're young girls, in programs, in schools, in after-school programs, in high school with curriculum that again blends those passions into college. So you can't start the pipeline right when they're getting ready to make a college decision. You got to start the pipeline when they're starting to engage in those type of interests. And one of the programs that the Intel Foundation with other contributors started was the Million Girls Moonshot, which is a series and a network of after-school programs where girls and their families can begin to engage in technology and see how that infiltration of technology is really happening in all different markets and segments. So it's engage early and engage often.
That's great. So carrying on with that thread, providing additional opportunities through post-secondary education. I know that certificates are important, and I certainly know from watching you two women, the learning never stops, right? So Sandra, like, how do you actually look at providing opportunities for somebody that's maybe going through secondary education all the way through their first role and continuing that learning journey as they move through their career?
Well, I think Rose framed this up really well in terms of just having to start early and attracting and energizing and exciting girls to pursue STEM careers. And then when it comes to joining the workforce, lowering the barriers to entry. Not everyone wants to or can afford a 4-year degree. Much of the work that we've been doing through some of the programs like Rose described, the Million Girls Moonshot, or some of the other programs that we have as part of the Intel Foundation, are programs that are rooted in helping students have a more accessibility to education through community college investments. And there's so many roles and so many jobs that we have that through a combination of either community college degrees and certification programs, for example, in our own factories, our own fabs, we have a lot of community college graduates, and then we go through a very extensive, anywhere from 6 to 12 months training on the specialized tools that we use for semiconductor manufacturing, and that is the lifeblood of our company. Of course, is our fabs, and so. To be able to provide more of those types of opportunities, investing in community colleges, providing certification programs, we really do lower the barriers to entry. And we're quite purposeful in terms of going to areas where there is a more diverse population, either people of color, certainly trying to attract more women to these fields. And we're making those types of investments and those types of programs available through our partners. When we think about the power of the tech industry, we know that we're stronger working together. So partners like Dell, partners like Amazon, the work that we're doing through our efforts in terms of AI for youth, right? Making AI a lot more accessible to many more students. All of these efforts are ways that we can just increase the level of participation and the accessibility of technology careers for our women and for our diverse populations.
That's great. Rose, do you have anything to add?
I think Sandra framed it up really, really well. And I think the only thing that I would add is it has to go corporate to grassroots. Sandra mentioned some programs. We also have the 300 million diversity in tech initiative that we were driving for years, which provided scholarship opportunities to the 6 HBCU colleges. And I have to make a comment. There's a beautiful story to complement the corporate initiatives, and it's really centered around grassroots. There was a gentleman that worked at Intel that thought it really critical to provide, again, scholarship opportunities to young women for HBCUs. And he just did it on his own. He started the Trajectory Foundation. He reaches out to folks within the company. And over the years, he's been able to increase the number of scholarships that he's provided through the Trajectory Foundation. And now he's providing insight to the lives and the progression and the opportunity that education has created to change the trajectory of people's families and provide the diversity of thought and interest and skill that we as corporations need. So it's a beautiful story. So from corporate support to personal and grassroots support, I think it's all critical.
That's awesome. All right, Sandra, you brought up AI. So let's talk about it as a topic. It's a really hot topic. So let's double click. Why is representation in this area so critical?
Well, so let's just start by defining AI. Right? AI is the use of computing platforms to help make decisions better, higher quality, faster, better decisions. And of course, at the root of AI is a set of algorithms, and algorithms are, of course, designed and developed by humans. And so the reason why it is so important to have diversity in AI is because it is humans that program or develop and design the algorithms that then we ask computers to run, again, faster and higher quality and with less errors than perhaps humans could do it. And we know that that having more diversity in the individuals and the technologies and the innovators that are creating those algorithms helps us with not creating algorithms that have bias, inherent bias in them that can be quite damaging. As we know, technology is a wonderful tool to do many, many good things in the world, but not applied appropriately and responsibly, it may have some negative outcomes. So diversity in AI is critically important, and AI in general is just this fast, massively growing field. We know that just looking at a recent LinkedIn survey from 2020, in the previous 4 years, the number of AI jobs and roles that companies are seeking has grown almost 75%. The number of women in AI fields, unfortunately, is only a little bit over 25%. So there's a disparity in terms of the need and the roles and the diverse talent that we would have to fill those roles, which is why we're so focused on ensuring that we're lowering those barriers to having accessible AI talent in the market, as we were just discussing. Some of the other ways that we're working with partners and with the ecosystem is to collaborate in a very focused manner to bring more women into the AI field. There is a program that we're partnered on called the Way Accelerate USA 2021 program, and what this program is designed to do is to invest in women-led, female-led startups that are focused on AI, machine learning, data science. And today we have over 8,000 women as part of that program and growing. And again, it's a way that we can have a focused set of investments, mentoring and sponsorship around women-led organizations and companies that are focused in this very important and growing field in AI. So AI is going to be pervasive in every workload, every segment, every one of our products going forward. But we want to ensure that we have an approach that reflects the populations that we're utilizing and investing the technology to help in terms of just using technology to do good in the world.
Awesome. So, Rose, how do we actually engage our customers to support opportunities like this?
This is something that just, makes my heart sing. One of the things that I love is that our partnership with our customers isn't limited to the evolution and progression of the technology itself, right? So I think everybody knows it's Amazon reInvent right now. And so I'll use our activities with Amazon as an example. We'll work with Amazon and AWS for things like scholarships for AI and machine learning. We had a program that we did with AWS and Udacity. We were doing a little program online, and since a lot of people are engaging online now, where we were doing a $50 donation to Girls in Tech if you just went out and visited the Intel and AWS Immersive City on the Cloud demo. So what a fun way to engage content, support STEM, and talk about new content and progress our diversity and inclusion goals. It's fantastic. We work with AWS on a scholarship program called Esperanza. Again, build the pipeline, bring the representation into the technical community, improve the products that we produce, take the bias out of the algorithms, as Sandra noted. We actually saw Adam Selipsky, the CEO, talk about this in his keynote. So it's really becoming pervasive. across our engagement with our customers. I just use AWS as an example, but we do this type of work with many, many customers.
All right, I'm going to switch gears. It's still along the same thread, but Sandra, so companies like Intel are opening multiple paths to different technology careers. So if you looked back at your time as the chief people officer at Intel, you actually set some pretty bold goals in this area. So how will these goals help us to actually find this right diverse talent?
So you're referring to our RISE 2030 goals, which we established in 2020 for where we wanted to be by the end of the decade. But maybe I'll just take a step back to explain our philosophy in establishing those goals. So we know that if you want to do something that's big and transformational and impactful and sustainable, you start with establishing an audacious set of goals that you don't maybe necessarily know how you're going to achieve, but it sets that North Star for rallying and organizing and energizing your workforce to go achieve this big mission. The second thing we know at Intel certainly is that you measure what matters. And so having specific success metrics for what that looks like along that journey is important. Because it just keeps you focused and it tracks your progress. And then the last piece, of course, is for us, we've learned that when you share your data transparently, it really is a point of accountability, both internally in your own organization, but since the problems we're talking about when we talk about diversity, inclusion, STEM careers, representation are bigger than any one company can solve, we certainly believe that by publishing your data, the good and maybe the not so good, it holds you accountable and it rallies others to help join forces in terms of solving these big challenges that we have in broad industries. So RISE 2030 was really born out of that philosophy of setting audacious goals. Setting success metrics and measuring your progress and then publishing your data. And what we established as part of RISE 2030 was a goal of doubling the number of women and underrepresented minorities in senior leadership roles at Intel. We also set a goal that by the end of the decade, we would have at least 40% of our women in technical roles from what in 2020 was 25%. So again, a pretty big, audacious goal. We set a goal of having a minimum, threshold of underrepresented minorities in senior leadership roles. We established a goal to double the number of underrepresented minorities and women in those senior leadership roles as well, again, by the end of the decade. And then we also set a goal to double the amount of annual spending that we do, and Intel spends billions and billions of dollars, of course, with our vendors in the ecosystem and our supply chain, but to double the amount of spending. So all of those goals get broken down into where we need to be each year, and we actually fold that into the way that we reward our leaders and our employees. So again, you measure what matters. You fold it into your systems and structures. It's part of how we hire. It's part of how we promote. It's part of how we reward. And we believe that this is how we drive sustainable, positive outcomes for the long term.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mentorship. So mentorship has been incredibly important in my own career, and I know for both of you ladies as well. So Rose, you've been with Intel for 30 years, or over 30 years, actually. Sandra, you've been with Intel for over 20. Can you each talk a little bit about the role of mentorship and what it's played in your professional development, and then how you use mentorship today to retain and grow talent?
I think Rose and I talk about this a lot, the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. So we might get into that a little bit, but mentors are your coaches, right? They're the ones that you can bounce ideas off of, the ones that you can be probably the most vulnerable with in terms of either your aspirations or your setbacks, your disappointments, your fears, your dreams. And having a broad set of mentors that help you, in that kind of ideation, in that bouncing ideas, in that getting feedback for any decisions that you're making, whether it's in the current role that you have or in roles that you aspire to get, is just critically important for you to, frankly, make better decisions and feel more confidence in those decisions. I know for me, the mentors and coaches and sponsors, and I'll let Rose talk a bit more about sponsorship, because I know she and I share the same view of sponsorship. But having those individuals in my life has just helped me in many ways, and many times get out of my comfort zone, because it's very, very easy for you to stay in the groove of the thing that you know so well. And oftentimes it takes someone holding up the mirror, telling you that, first of all, yes, you can, if you have doubts, which I will say has been one of the things that I've learned about myself over the years is that voice that tells you can't, to just kind of ignore it and listen to, the voice that tells you you can, even if it's terrifying, the thing that you're going to undertake. So it just is such a way to, I think, make better, higher quality decisions about your career trajectory and the chances that you're willing to take and the assignments that you're willing to raise your hand for. And so given how much I benefited from the generosity of my mentors and coaches, I do think that when you are in a position of power and authority and responsibility, that you have a responsibility to pay it forward. And it is one of the, I would say, cultural tenets that we have at Intel, certainly with the network of executive women, that we do feel a strong sense of responsibility to invest in, nurture, mentor, coach, sponsor that next generation of talent. So maybe one last thing, and I'd love for Rose to jump in here, is that Rose has been a wonderful mentor, sponsor, and coach for me my entire career. And so I just value her friendship, her sage advice, her holding up the mirror to me. And I'm just so grateful to her. And, it's that gratitude that then I channel into trying to do the same for others.
Yeah, you're gonna make me cry. We've had a many decade, very special relationship, Sandra and I, in terms of support and mentorship, and it has grown with, through, and for us. And I could not be more appreciative of our relationship at work, which has blossomed into a beautiful friendship as well. But to just add on to some of Sandra's thoughts, someone said to me early on, learn and return. So I'll structure my response with that frame. Early on, I had fantastic mentors in my career. And the point that I want to make here is they were both men and women. I had fantastic sponsors who were men that pushed me in front of ELT to make, our executive leadership team, to make presentations that I was incredibly nervous to do. I had sponsors who were women that pushed me into new areas that really challenged me in terms of what I could do and the leader that I could become. So on both fronts, I was really appreciative, both to men and women, for that opportunity. The other thing that I realized about, I don't know, maybe it was 2/3 of the way through my career when someone asked me about, what do you think about mentorship, is that you can learn something from every single engagement that you have every day. Some of those things you'll file into your memory banks as, I'm not sure I would have handled it that way. I'm not sure I would like to be that leader. Some of them are, wow, that individual handled that super well. And that's in a work environment. And then I go home and, I talk to my daughter, who's like my little mirror. And it's an opportunity to see a complete reflection of myself in many ways, though she's grown into a beautiful woman with her own characteristics. But there was a lot of reflection that you see when you raise your children, when you speak to your husband, when you look at the path that your parents created. my mother, with who I will always hold up as one of my critical mentors, not a college education, progressed to senior vice president with a lot of hard work and continuous learning and challenging herself. My father, who just worked really hard his entire life. So from a mentorship perspective, there's the environment within work, and then there's environment at home. And from my learning perspective, I try and take something from each of those experiences. And then in terms of, you got to learn it and then you got to return it. So I try very hard to keep open to opportunities to, on my calendar for, the next generation of leaders, whether it be men or women again. But from my perspective, I've leaned in really hard to bridge our diverse community and our technologists. So I sponsor our technology community within our sales and marketing organization. And then I'm also the executive sponsor for our Black network of executive women at Intel. And that's been just an absolutely fascinating opportunity for me, again, to learn and return all in the same dialogue. Because what I've learned is, even with the best intention around diversity and inclusion goals, you can have a population that feels maybe a bit camouflaged. So it's really, really important to be intentional with the leadership and the sponsorship. And I think that is, what Sandra and I are very aligned on, is you get to a point in your career, you've learned, you've returned, you've mentored, you've coached, but then you have to be a vocal sponsor within your company, your community, your network, for some of this talent that hasn't had the opportunity, the network, or the exposure to have their best foot, their best experience, their knowledge, their capability be viewed, appreciated, and then progressed.
Yeah, and maybe just one final point, because I love this whole thread that Rose has raised around sponsorship. And one of the things that I often say to women that I'm coaching and investing in, actually not just women, Rose and I do coaching and investing in all of our talent, but it's just a reminder that most of the important decisions about your career are going to be made when you're not in the room. And it is really, really important for those sponsors that are in the room to advocate for you, to convince and make the case for, in some ways, giving that individual a stretch assignment, investing in their growth and progression, giving them the exposure, as Rose shared. And so I do think that it's important to have sponsors in your life and your career that are in positions of power. And when Rose talks about learn and return, that is the responsibility that we have, is to not just mentor and coach, but also to be advocate, vocal sponsors for individuals, to give them that opportunity for growth and progression, and frankly, for all the positive impact that they can make in your organization once you put them in that position that stretches them and grows them.
Yeah, one more comment based on what Sandra said, and this is just a huge shout out to her personally for all the incredible work that she did to drive a culture within Intel that's not solely driven on what you do, but how you do it. And going back to, a lot of decisions will be made on your career when you're not in the room. I think everybody has a tremendous amount of focus on your results and your deliverables. We're in tech, we're delivering every single day, but there's a way to do things that solicits and entices that sponsorship in the how you approach it, by building a collaborative team, leading with passion, being inclusive. And as we start to round out that whole person and that whole leader with not only the what, but the how, not only with the head, but the heart and the hands, I think it's really important that as we continue to learn and return, that we acknowledge in the return part the whole person at work, and the what and the how.
That's super inspiring from both of you. And I know I've used both of you as sounding boards, so I can attest to your amazing mentorship and sponsorship. So thank you. All right, Rose, what is it about technology that wants you to invite more people to the party?
Oh my God. Okay. So I've got to step back. We at Intel, we spend a lot of, we celebrate our successes and we celebrate our wins. And you know, you get design wins, you hit a major goal, you execute on a milestone. But then there are a few opportunities where, and maybe more than a few, where you're working with customers and you're working with the ecosystem and you imprint humanity. And I think in the world that we're in right now with this global pandemic, we've seen a lot of those opportunities and wins and progression of technology and use of technology that really touches the heart and touches humanity. And, you know, we had a recent example where we talk about the democratization of drug discovery with a giant high performance computing run on a virtual flow platform where, you know, using some of our Xeon technology, where we're accelerating drug discovery that we need for cancer research. I mean, cancer research, how awesome is that? And then getting back to the pandemic, there was an example recently with CoWIN, and it was a vaccination platform in India. And we stood it up with AWS really quickly, and it was getting 3.2 billion hits a day, and it was providing access to vaccines for the population in India. And then just one final one, you know, again, around COVID is working with the University of Chicago, and we have a capability called One API, where we leverage that technology and we did the initial COVID models. So, I mean, how cool is that? I mean, so you're working with customers. It's not only having business results, but it's really impacting humanity. And those are the ones where you wake up and you see a win in your inbox, or you see one of these opportunities and collaborations. It just brings a tear to my eye and, you know, warms my heart.
How about you, Sandra? How do you work towards Intel making a change in the world every day?
Well, I just want to echo Rose's examples there of our purpose. I mean, Intel's purpose is to create world-changing technology that improves the lives of every person on the planet. And we believe that. We see that in action every single day. Rose gave some beautiful examples. We know that, in fact, the pandemic did create this just huge opportunity for us to demonstrate how, through our technology, we're helping improve lives. And maybe just another couple of examples. One was around the remote learning that everyone had to reconfigure for globally. In India specifically, we launched a capability again with AWS around making their learning portal accessible to students around the country. And the pilot was launched within 2 weeks, and the actual availability of that learning portal and all of the materials there became available to over 160,000 students within just 2 months. So this is an example of how we can have positive impact at scale. And maybe just one other example that the pandemic did lay bare is the economic inequality that exists in here, just close to home in the US. The fact that, kids just didn't have broadband access to be able to attend school remotely. So just the work that we've done in DC with the administration to lower that barrier of broadband and to rally around the idea that broadband for all is really just a basic capability that every household needs to have. And so we're delighted to see that, from an infrastructure investment perspective, that we are investing to make broadband accessible for all. And of course, having the footprint that we have in terms of our computing devices, our PCs, the indispensable tool that we have for everything from, learning and work and of course, entertainment. It's just a wonderful example of how technology really can make a positive impact. And for us at Intel, having the privilege of being in a position where we can make that positive impact at scale.
Agreed. All right, superpowers. So we've all heard Pat talk about our Intel superpowers. So what are your superpowers, and what superpowers do you look for in others? Sandra, let's start with you.
It's interesting. I often reflected why our previous CEO asked me to take on the role of chief people officer, having no domain expertise whatsoever in that area. But I shared his belief that our greatest asset is our people. Everything comes from our people in terms of they are the source of innovation. There's a source of creating strategies. They're the source of delivering and executing, our plans. And I've always believed that in order to build high performance businesses, you have to start first by building high performance teams. So if I were to encapsulate, what my superpower is, it is the ability to bring together a collection of individuals, establish a trust environment, create a sense of accountability and a mission, a big, bold, a mission for us to achieve together, and to build this high performing team that then can drive a high performance business. What do I look for in others? I do look for intellectual curiosity. I should extend that to say intellectual humility, right? All of us that are here at Intel are here because we get to work with the most brilliant minds in the world. And every single day, as Rose was reflecting earlier, we get to learn. And so I just really gravitate towards people that have that learning mindset, that growth mindset, that curiosity and humility to ask questions and to want to learn.
That's great. Rosie, what superpowers do you look for in strong female leaders?
Well, I've got to go back to Sandra's answer because she is being way too humble. She's brilliant. She's an incredible leader. She is an absolute master of bringing people together to solve a problem. She's inspiring, and she invests in her people like no one I've ever seen. So she is very much underselling her superpowers. And that is just a few others that I would name. I got a long list that I can provide for Sandra. So what are the things that I look for? I think, Sandra named a bunch of them. I am super passionate about people that are collaborative. Going back to her comment, I'm a we versus I am a big team, little me. And the best thing happens when bright minds come together with a common goal. Sandra and I had experiences working together over the years where the results were we were blessed with amazing results because people were focused on the team goal, not their individual goal. And as we watched that journey continue over the years, the individual accolades came because the focus on the team goal was really critical. So whether it be, female tech talent or leadership in general, collaboration, teaming, definitely attributes that are top of mind for me, as well as passion and being a lifelong learner. I think in our industry, as I watch Sandra read her artificial intelligence book and have it sometimes on her side on her desk as she's doing video sessions, we have to be lifelong learners.
All right, final question for both of you ladies. So you're both such an inspiration to me and to others like me. So quick question is who inspires you? So Rose, let's start with you.
Wow. The list is just way too long. But I would have to start, and I mentioned this earlier, with my mother. Just has imprinted me from the time that I was, like the corn knee high on the 4th of July. So I would start with my mother, and I have been just surrounded by unbelievable supportive, brilliant, collaborative, teaming. I'll start with women throughout my career, whether it be Sandra. I mean, I can't say enough positive things about the confidant, friend, mentor, coach that she's been to me through the years. My current leader, Michelle Johnson, working with the likes of Diane Bryant throughout my career, who continued to push me beyond things that I could never imagine doing. Groundbreakers. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who I hold up there with pretty high regard for really breaking a lot of barriers for women. But I really do find most of my inspiration from the people around me. I'm blessed to still have my mother. I'm blessed to still be working with people like Sandra, with people like Aisha Evans and Michelle Johnson and Diane Bryant. And I'm blessed to have a daughter and a husband that challenge me every day and provide me with the inspiration to keep going.
Great. How about you, Sandra?
Oh my goodness. I mean, so many parallels to Rose, but probably first and foremost, my parents. So I am the daughter of Colombian immigrants. My parents came to this country with $100 in their pocket and 100 words of English in their vocabulary and a very big dream to make a life for their young family here in the United States. And so everything that I've ever learned about leadership and my professional and my personal life really emanates from them in terms of courage, family first, responsibility, taking care of each other, working together as a team. And like Rose, in my professional career, and certainly so much of it being here at Intel at this point, we've had just this extraordinary set of role models to look up to. Diane Bryant, who's now the CEO of an AI healthcare startup, Aisha Evans, who left to be the CEO of Zoox. It was subsequently acquired by Amazon. Regine Skillern, who is the president of the service provider organization at Flex, and just so many more. So we've had so many wonderful role models at Intel that, as sad as we are to see them leave, go on to do these amazing things out in industry. But, similar to what Rose shared, I'm inspired every single day by the people around me. It is the reason that I'm here at Intel. I am a learner. I am curious. I love to be challenged. I am comfortable being uncomfortable, being oftentimes the one that knows the least about any one particular discipline or technical detail or architectural insight in the room. But I love learning, and I love the idea of just bringing this extraordinary brain trust of individuals and leaders at Intel to live into our purpose and to do amazing things that we get to do every day.
Well, this has been an amazing opportunity for me to sit down with you two ladies. I can't thank you enough for both of you for your time today. So as we converge on our 4 superpowers, I think it's super important that we continue to open doors and nurture the superpowers of others. So I would encourage everyone to keep track of these ladies through their work on LinkedIn and on Twitter and some of the other wonderful women and folks that we've talked about during our conversation today. So again, thank you both for this opportunity. Thank you for sharing your journey, and thank you for sharing your passion around this topic.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Rose. Back at you.